The chainsaw has had an interesting evolution throughout each of the Doom games. In classic Doom, the chainsaw was your second melee weapon along with your fist, and apart from pretty specific instances, it was more of a hindrance to use than anything else. At least with the Berserk power-up, you can jab enemies and then quickly get out of the way of their incoming projectiles. With the chainsaw, you were kinda locked onto them as you're tearing them to pieces, and it just wasn't a viable way to kill demons. The Pinky is probably the only enemy in classic Doom that you can kill effectively with the chainsaw, but there are these rare moments where they do this melee attack and it chips some of your health away. That is bullshit and it happens once in a blue moon, but whatever. The chainsaw in Doom 3 wasn't much better, and while it was good seeing it in the game and everything, I wasn't busting out the chainsaw every time a demon popped up in Doom 3. id Software created a proper explanation about how regular Earth chainsaws made it onto a Mars base, and it's worth checking out if you've ever played Doom 3. I just love how they felt the need to justify a chainsaw being on Mars, like that's the most outlandish aspect about the plot or anything. It's just one of those goofy oddities about Doom 3 that I appreciate, and when it wants to be, the game can be pretty funny. Let's get back on track by talking about the chainsaw in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. With Doom 2016, you relied on the chainsaw far less because ammo pickups are rampant in the levels and you never really run out. If you have all of your charges filled up, you can chainsaw a heavy demon and it's extremely satisfying when you pull it off. Similar to Doom Eternal, the chainsaw makes enemies turn into a fountain of ammo, but I didn't actually use it that much. The Doom 2016 chainsaw sounds like a useful weapon in theory, but there's a couple of things going against it. Fuel is a little too uncommon in Doom 2016, so you won't be spamming it all throughout the game. And the biggest complaint I have with the chainsaw is that you need to press the key to equip it, and then you need to press a separate button to actually use it. That is very annoying, especially after playing Doom Eternal, where you can just tap one button to use the chainsaw without having to equip it or anything. Doom 2016's chainsaw was a fun novelty that had some utility when you run out of ammo, but those moments are not that common. Speaking of Doom Eternal, the chainsaw gets a complete overhaul and is basically required to finish the game. id Software doubles down on resource management, and part of that is making the chainsaw a constant weapon that you use in battle. One chainsaw point refills over time and it basically acts as a cooldown, and if you want to kill the tougher demons, you have to find more fuel canisters in the levels. You guys know this basic information, it's literally taught to you in the first level, but my point is, the chainsaw in Doom Eternal, like I've said in the title of the video, is everything. Even though it is technically possible to beat Doom Eternal without the chainsaw, it's going to be a long and terrible journey. However, the chainsaw doesn't just give you ammo, but it gives you those extra 2 seconds to think about the combat scenario that you're in. This is the second most important aspect about the chainsaw, how it gives players breathing space in the middle of combat. Glory kill animations are a bit too brief to give you a breather, depending on the glory kill of course, but the chainsaw animation is a little longer so you can calculate what you're doing. Doom Eternal is an intense game, and when you're knee-deep in an arena with demons attacking you at all angles, busting out the chainsaw and watching that animation play out as you gather your thoughts is nice to have. It's a little morbid that your moment of downtime in Doom Eternal combat is when you're slicing a demon's body in half, but whatever. There are weapon mods that try and slow down demons and to give you a few seconds to think things over, but they don't compare to the chainsaw. The microwave beam stops one demon in place and is great to use for stun locking combos, but your movement is limited and it gives the rest of the enemies a window to attack you. Of course you can try and minimize this using ice bombs or something, but the chainsaw actually stops the game in its tracks so you have a few seconds to get your bearings. I use the Blood-Fueled rune, and while it says that you only gain a speed boost after glory kills, this isn't necessarily the case, since it also activates on Crucible kills and of course Chainsaw kills. That being said, Blood-Fueled is a great rune to use if you want to get out of a situation quickly, and coupled with the Chainsaw and how that can give you a few seconds to get situated again, this can really help you out. Speaking of runes though, Chrono Strike can be overpowered and grant you some excellent downtime when you're playing in an intense arena. However, the Chainsaw is king, and that's also due to the sheer range of its attack, but we'll get to that later. Since you'll be using the Chainsaw a lot more in Doom Eternal, it is even more rare that you'll have all of your points activated, but when you do and you cut up a heavy demon, it's the best feeling in the world. You managed your resources correctly to ensure that you have enough Chainsaw points to fuck up a tougher demon, and you should be proud of yourself. On Ultra Nightmare attempts, I would hardly call them runs, they're really attempts, of the first level, I tend to save my Chainsaw fuel until I meet the Arachnotron in the subway tunnel. This section is way too difficult for me on Ultra Nightmare, and I need a quick method of dealing with the Arachnotron. So, the Chainsaw comes in handy for that. And speaking of the Chainsaw being used for quick kills, I sometimes use the Chainsaw on those shield zombies when I'm in a tricky spot. Although the Plasma Rifle deals with the shield zombies pretty well, and it even creates an explosion around them when you aim at their energy shield, the Chainsaw cuts them down immediately. The range of the Chainsaw is insane as well, meaning that you can bust out the Chainsaw and lock onto an enemy at a pretty fair distance away, which is always good, and it's yet another perk of the Chainsaw. I love how the Chainsaw works in Doom Eternal, and it provides clear utility in the game. That's what was missing in Doom 2016, and even classic Doom was guilty of this as well, but with Doom Eternal, the Chainsaw has a solid purpose. Of course, you can find ammo pickups scattered about the levels, especially in the earlier maps for new players that aren't used to the new resource management yet, but the Chainsaw is still pretty essential. More than that though, the Chainsaw is your way to take a breather in combat, and you can use this to get your bearings and make a new plan of attack. The Chainsaw in Doom Eternal is awesome, and it's leagues above the other Doom games, because there's an obvious reason for its existence. It's not just a cool thing where you use it once and then forget about it 99% of the time, like in classic Doom and Doom 3. In fact, it's kinda crazy to think that such a novelty weapon in Doom 1 would wind up being one of the most useful components of combat in Doom Eternal. I doubt old id Software were thinking that one day the Chainsaw would be the backbone of a new Doom game, but here we are. The Berserk power-up has kind of become that novelty ability in the reboot games, while the Chainsaw is completely overpowered and necessary in combat now. I always thought that Berserk, whenever you got access to it in classic Doom, was extremely useful and great for saving ammo, but it's interesting to see how things have evolved. What is your favourite iteration of the Chainsaw in the Doom games? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and in regards to classic Doom specifically, which do you think is more effective, the Berserk power-up or the Chainsaw? Let me know, and thank you for watching.